Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
I need to announce, and this is our first official announcement of the case. I'm holding in my hands for our Facebook audience, our audience on watching on the web, folks on Periscope. This is a lawsuit. This is one massive, giant lawsuit. It is the most significant U.S. federal court action we have ever engaged in defense of the legitimacy of the Jewish state of Israel. Palestinian activists opposed to Israel's existence as a Jewish state have filed a billion-dollar lawsuit in the federal district court in Washington, D.C. against numerous organizations that support Israel, includes businesses, individual citizens, and nonprofits groups, as well as a whole list of U.S. major companies, part of this BDS movement. They've alleged civil conspiracy, war crimes, aiding and abetting the commission of war crimes, and trespass. It is an absurd, an outrageous attempt to utilize the U.S. federal courts to delegitimize Israel. We have been called into action in the case by a very prominent Jerusalem-based lawyer, Mark Zell, who has a tremendous reputation as a litigator around the globe. He is serving as lead counsel in this case. He has brought us in to serve now as co-counsel in this case, defending Gush Etzion Foundation. And Gush Etzion, I want to put this up on the screen. Those of you that have been to Israel and know about the Jewish Jerusalem, here's the great quote from the Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion. I can think of no battle in the annals of Israel Defense Forces which has had more magnificent, more tragic, or more heroic than the struggle for Gush Etzion. If there exists a Jewish Jerusalem, our foremost thanks go to the defenders of Gush Etzion. That's who we're representing in federal court. Folks, again, if you want to stand with us, we encourage you to do so at aclj.org or call us right now at 1-877-989-2255 to add your name to this petition, standing with Israel against this lawsuit. You can make a big impact and a big difference. Again, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255.
Israel is under constant deadly terrorist knife and rocket attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support Israel face vicious discrimination at U.S. universities, all in an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. Israel is our ally. The Jewish people are friends. It's our duty to defend them. That's why the ACLJ is launching a massive new multinational legal campaign in defense of Israel, in the U.S., at the UN, and with world leaders. But we need these global leaders to hear from you now. Add your name to our new petition, a petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
So if you're just joining us, a major piece of litigation, the ACLJ, we are handling, actually, it's the most significant U.S. federal court case in defense of Israel's legitimacy as a Jewish state. As I mentioned earlier, Palestinian activists have filed this suit. We're representing Gush Etzion, which served a critical role in the ability for Jerusalem to be a Jewish portion. I mean, there was not a heavy Jewish president, believe it or not, in Jerusalem. It was certainly, when you see the existence of Jerusalem today as a Jewish Jerusalem, as David Ben-Gurion said, this is because of the valiant effort of the soldiers of Gush Etzion, which is, and we're representing the foundation, which is a portion of Israel. I don't know if we have the map up yet. I know we're going to work on it. So we'll get that up. But I wanted to let you know that the foundation that we're representing is a charity dedicated to the history and people of Gush Etzion. It's a group of Israeli cities and towns, about 70,000 folks. We are working with Mark Zell on the case. Mark is a very prominent lawyer in Jerusalem. Our offices and this is important for people to understand. For this case, our offices in Washington, New York, and Jerusalem are all engaged in this case. And Jordan, this is a huge case for the legitimacy of the Jewish state. It's the biggest case for the legitimacy of the Jewish state because it's in federal court.
That's right. It involves an issue that some like to term, settlements, but this is one that dates back even before Israel's existence. So Jews have been living on this spot since before the nation of Israel existed. In fact, we read people the quote from Prime Minister Ben Gurion, and that was because in 1948, all of the people who lived there that were Jewish, as Israel was becoming independent, were massacred.
Right.
So the fleeing Arab armies who had been defeated by Israel on their way out massacred all of the people, all of the Jewish people who live in this specific area in the Judean hills. It was not restarted again until after the 1967 war, but it was one of Israel's first actions to put Jews back in this area of Judea and Samaria.
And this is such a significant case. Logan's media team, we're going to be meeting, I think, in early September. We may be doing a full documentary on because the story of Gush Etzion. By the way, what Jordan's saying is right. I mean, the Israel's independence was declared the day after Gush Etzion, the soldiers were killed. These 35 soldiers allowed for a Jewish Jerusalem. But we're looking at doing a full documentary on this.
That's right. It's such a compelling story and a story that's really untold, especially to an American audience. We think it'd be a good story to tell.
And it also ties in because these were the Holocaust survivors. The area was settled by Holocaust survivors in the more modern Israel history. So there's just a tremendous amount to tell in this incredible story, and how the letters that the Holocaust survivors who were in Gush Etzion wrote to their children, who now in 1967 liberated, as Jordan said, they liberated that area and got it back. It was the children of the Holocaust survivors that obtained the victory in 1967 and 1968. It was God in the 1967 war that allowed Israel to then reclaim Jerusalem. But what a magnificent story. And we have the privilege of defending Gush Etzion in the U.S. District Court in the District of Columbia. I mean, I can't tell you how excited we are on this.
People are asking what that means to be defending them. Are you representing the area? Are you representing the people?
Good question. So Gush Etzion is an area about, we're going to get a map up, and we have it later in the broadcast. We've got it. There it is. Okay. So Gush Etzion, I'm trying to find it on the map. Maybe
there.
Is it in the dots? Right here. So you see it's right before Jerusalem. Right before Jerusalem. And I'm showing our Facebook and Periscope audience. And for our radio audience, it's right outside of Jerusalem. You've seen this if you've traveled to Jerusalem. So it's a large area. They have been sued by these, it's basically a boycott, divest, and sanction movement, all these Palestinian activists for civil conspiracy, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, aiding and abetting the commission of war crimes, and aggravated and ongoing trespass. In other words, the aggravated and ongoing trespass, people need to understand what that means. The Palestinians are saying, you're trespassing because this is our land. They say aiding and abetting the commission of the war crime, defending their land. So this is, again, these Palestinian groups, Jordan, trying to use the legal system to delegitimize Israel. But we are defending the Gush Etzion Foundation, which is the foundation that a lot of these cities have foundations that allow for international aid to come in and to help with these areas, and that's exactly what they're doing and we're defending.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about lawfare, and lawfare is a form of warfare to utilize court systems, specifically Western court systems. So court systems like the International Criminal Court, which were set up by the Western world, and then utilize those systems even when you yourself aren't complying, because you take on the larger entity, if you will. And for many of these groups, that would be Israel. And now in this case, utilizing and attempting to utilize U.S. courts. This would be, I would say that how unique is this for a lawsuit like this to be filed in America against an Israeli group?
Incredible. I mean, this is they've tried it once before, but not to this level. And Gush Etzion, if you know Bethlehem and Jerusalem, that's the area you're talking about. So it's the most significant piece of federal litigation ever brought in, because what you said, Jordan's correct, in the U.S. courts. This is a big defense that we're engaging in, folks. And I'm going to hold it up again here because this shows you the volume. What I'm holding in my hand, and for a radio audience, how many pages would you say this is?
Over 700.
700 pages. So for a radio audience, just think about that for a moment. Here it is. I mean, you could see it on TV for our television audience as well. This is a huge, huge lawsuit, and we are thrilled that we have the opportunity to represent Gush Etzion. So, Logan, does that answer the questions pretty well?
I think so.
Probably some calls.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's go to Roberta, who's calling in Pueblo, Colorado.
Hi, Roberta.
You're on the air.
Hi, just thank you so much for standing up for Israel, standing up for the Jewish people.
Thanks.
They are God's chosen people.
Yep.
It is biblically correct, morally correct, and humanely correct, and that's my comment.
Well, Roberta, I appreciate it. I want to tell you something. This is an honor of our lifetime. This is when I spoke at the UN, that was just, when was that? The end of May, right? The end of May. Here we are at the middle of August. 6 weeks later, after that speech at the United Nations, we are now defending Israel in the most significant case in the United States. As Jordan said, it's unusual because it's not in The Hague, it's in the United States. But then, if you look at what we just did at the UN just 6 weeks ago, and then here we are again, this shows you the scope and nature of our work. And for our viewers out there, I want you to understand something. Our offices in Washington, New York, Jerusalem, all working on this. Our offices at the campus of Regent University, working on this case. Our offices in Atlanta, working on this case at Emory University. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, Jay, first of all, I think this is the most important work we do. I mean, the event that we had at the UN laid the foundation for it. But I would just say two things. Number one, this lawsuit is rooted in anti-Semitism, and this is something that I'm making sure the Hill understands. But secondly, and people really need to understand this, you've laid out the magnitude of the legal case, 700 pages in this lawsuit, huge legal ramifications. But also, the pure size of the lawsuit, Jay, and the financial demands that are in there, those are intended for a marketing purpose. Those are intended to scare these defendants and other entities from doing business with Israel. So our work is going to certainly involve the legal angle, but it's also got to involve telling the story. We cannot be afraid to do work with Israel, and this lawsuit and our work in it is going to have to involve both of those efforts.
Folks, as you see, whether it's the United Nations or now whether it's the federal courts in Washington, D.C., the ACLJ front and center in defense of Israel, I want to encourage you to go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. I need you to add your name of support right now for our petition in support of Israel. It's easy to do it. 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. All right, Logan, let's take another phone call here.
All right, Michael, Virginia, on line 5.
Hey,
You're on the
Michael.
air.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say that, like the last caller, that we are morally bound to support Israel in every way we can. And it is biblical. I believe very strongly as a born-again Christian the words of God that state, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And listen, we're at a turning point in history right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this history, the history of Gush Etzion, Jordan, you talked about this. If there exists a Jewish Jerusalem today, our foremost thanks goes to the defenders of Gush Etzion. That's the area that was from David Ben-Gurion. As Jordan mentioned, the Arab Legion massacred the Jews of Gush Etzion, but in a miracle, in the 6-day war, the sons and daughters of those Holocaust survivors that started Gush Etzion, the sons and daughters as soldiers reclaimed that territory and made it again a Jewish Jerusalem. We're defending our client from these attacks, but this is a direct attack on the legitimacy of the Jewish state.
Yes, it is. And so this is not a new area. This is where Jews existed in the land that compromises Israel, Judea and Samaria, since before the founding of the modern state of Israel. So these were groups of Jews who did not, they were not part of the diaspora and ended up in Europe or North Africa or then in even the United States of America. They stayed in the Middle East. And in a sense, they were very important because they maintained that historical recognition and this historical timeline, if you will, when it comes to genealogy of the Jews being in what is now the Jewish state of Israel, which these Palestinian groups try to say they weren't even here. They haven't even been here. This is our land. And so this group was very important. It's why when the Arab armies were fleeing in 1948, one of their last actions was to massacre those who lived at this settlement, to destroy it, and they took that. They took that territory.
Okay.
It took until 1967 for Israel to reclaim it, and one of their first acts was to set it back up.
Ann wants to know on Facebook, maybe too quick, and we have to take in the next segment, but why is it being filed here in the U.S.?
So they are utilizing the U.S. That's a great question. They are utilizing the U.S. court system because they say they can't get justice in Israel, but they're utilizing the court system in the United States actually to, again, delegitimize or try to delegitimize Israel right here in the United States. So the first thing we're going to do is file a massive, you saw the lawsuit, 700 pages, a massive motion to dismiss. Folks, again, if you want to stand with us, we encourage you to do so at aclj.org or call us right now at 1-877-989-2255 to add your name to this petition, standing with Israel against this lawsuit. You can make a big impact and a big difference. Again, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255.
Israel is under constant deadly terrorist knife and rocket attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support Israel face vicious discrimination at U.S. universities, all in an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. Israel is our ally. The Jewish people are friends. It's our duty to defend them. That's why the ACLJ is launching a massive new multinational legal campaign in defense of Israel, in the U.S., at the UN, and with world leaders. But we need these global leaders to hear from you now. Add your name to our new petition, a petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. It was just 6 weeks ago that I was before the United Nations at the General Assembly giving a defense of Israel. 6 weeks later, we're now from the United Nations to the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., defending Israel in that court case. But let me take you back to the United Nations to get a sense of what I talked about.
Israel, the Middle East's only true democracy, is slandered like no other country on earth.
We call it lawfare, utilizing the legal system to delegitimize a people or a group. It is not a civil rights movement. It is a movement with one aim and one aim only. It is a long-term project created by anti-Israel and anti-Jewish activists that is designed with one purpose: to delegitimize and destroy the state of Israel, to delegitimize the Jewish people, to delegitimize those non-Jewish people that stand with Israel. It is unacceptable in a country governed by a constitution. It is unacceptable as a matter of law. This is no civil rights movement. This is an unconstitutional and illegal advocacy taking place in the United States of America.
Their basic demand is that we should simply disappear. Well, my friends, that's not going to happen.
We're in a struggle for life and death. It is a struggle. We will win. We have no option. Thank you very much.
Folks, as you see, whether it's the United Nations or now whether it's the federal courts in Washington, D.C., the ACLJ front and center in defense of Israel, I want to encourage you to go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. I need you to add your name of support right now for our petition in support of Israel. It's easy to do it. 1-877-989-2255 or aclj.org. All right, let's go right to the phones, Logan.
All right, let's go to Larry, who's well 34 minutes. Thanks, Larry. You're on
Probably
the air.
send Larry 2 rise of ISIS. Go ahead, Larry. You're on the air.
Jay, God bless your
Thanks.
work. God bless your team, and thank you for everything y'all do.
Sure.
I'm gonna try to be really quick with you. Every day that I catch your radio program, you're feeding us information, and you're fighting battles that it seems to me Congress should be controlling or have oversight over. And I hear other people calling in asking you, what can we do? You know, other than the election process where we got to vote the right person in or vote them out, is there any legal mechanism that we can use for a gross negligence.
Sure,
of
we're doing that. I mean, we're right now in federal court against the State Department. We're in federal court against the IRS. We just won at the Court of Appeals of the IRS. We're fighting the State Department right now on the fraud they told us on this Iran deal. We've got Freedom of Information Act requests out to Homeland Security about why they took the word Islamic out of their training manuals. And then we do, and I don't want to give Congress a short shrift here. There's been a number of members of Congress that have been very helpful, and in fact, we've testified a number of times. That's an important part of what we do, Stan.
Well, I think they can be both complimented and urged on to more action. I mean, just yesterday there was a follow-up letter from the Oversight Committee on the whole issue of perjury to the Congress as far as Hillary Clinton's testimony. We've worked with them closely on that. But I will say this to the caller. We have consistently called for them to use the power of the purse and withhold funding from agencies that engage in this kind of abuse more effectively than they have. And this fall, Jay, when they return next month, we're going to do that again. There's more they can do.
All right, we're going to go right back to those phones. 1-800-684-3110.
Logan, who's next? Jerry, 26 minutes. You're on the air.
All right, Jerry, you're getting the book.
Springs.
Hey, Jerry.
Okay, talk
Hi there. Hi there. It's great to be talking with you guys.
Thanks.
So I'm calling in full support of our position in defending Israel
Great.
for two important reasons. Number one, it's probably one, if not the only nation in the Middle East where one can truly be free,
Correct.
no matter where you're from. No matter where you're from.
Right.
And number two, they are our front line in our fight against radical Islam.
Well, look, I mean, you're right on two fronts. It is the freest democracy, Jordan, in the Middle East. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. And number two, and people need to understand this, the intelligence gathering capability of the Israeli Defense Forces, the Shin Bet, the Mossad, the intelligence agencies, has been vital to keeping radical Islam, at least in the battle, that we can have correct intelligence. And you can't ignore for a moment Israel's role there, Jordan. That's why we're so aggressive in our defense, folks. Look, we're at the UN at the end of the May. In the middle of August, we're in federal court. I mean, what else can I say other than that?
Yeah, and this is such an important ally for the United States. Our most important ally, I would say, in modern times, because of the fight against radical Islamic terrorism. It doesn't just have to be about our connection, our Judeo-Christian heritage. That's important, I know, for our audience.
Right.
But for the United States, big picture, 10,000 feet, we're looking down upon this. Why is this so important? It's the only democracy in the Middle East that's functioning that hasn't been taken over by radical Islamic groups like Lebanon and Hezbollah or Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And we have other allies. They're not democracies. Those other allies are basically kings with unlimited power. So they've been able to somewhat keep their people in check, if you will. But this is our real ally, and stronger militarily than most of Europe. In Europe, we can utilize the larger NATO structure. But if you try to point out one individual country amongst that's kind of difficult to say, is the UK more important than France? And whose military is stronger? Israel's right on the front line. We work with them on developing technology to aid our troops, to protect our troops, to protect our own homeland as they protect theirs. And because of that relationship, regardless of who the president is, it is very important to defend Israel, both on the airwaves, but also when we have to go to court.
And that's what we're doing right now. Again, if you're just joining us, we are in federal court on that very issue right now, defending Israel. Go ahead, Logan. Who's next?
Let's go to Jack in Harrisburg, PA.
Hi, Jack.
How you doing?
Yep.
I appreciate the time and effort and work that your organization is putting in. I have a question. Why? Now, I am absolutely convinced that the Obama administration is flat out anti-Semitic. Any Clinton administration probably would follow suit. Why then do the Jewish people in this country predominantly vote for administrations like the Clinton and
there is a Jewish Republican group as well, but probably a majority, certainly, of Jews in America vote for Democrats. And you know what that's called? It's called a free country. And then that's changing. You do see a lot more Jewish Republicans. In fact, some of the leading Republican fundraisers you talk about Shelley Adelson and some of these individuals that put a lot of money behind Israel over the years. And there's a lot of that. And in Hollywood, too. They're just more discreet. But then, that's a good political question.
Well, but let me tell you, just politically speaking, this administration has done great harm to especially Senate Democrats in this regard. I was talking to a couple of people about a couple of competitive races in the Senate, and one of the biggest factors working against the Democrat in those races is the president's position on Israel and on the Jewish community. So, historically speaking, there's a pretty close divide. In this cycle, the president is hurting Senate Democrats.
Yeah. That's right. When you hear any of these organizations speak out against Israel, you usually automatically hear from a large section of Hollywood who comes out in straight defense of Israel.
Yeah.
Even if they're liberal leaning on every other issue, this is where they are not. There'll be petitions, there'll be ads in Variety. You will see big support from Israel from Hollywood, from the major corporations, Hollywood, the major companies, and the major personalities. So, you're right that they may lean liberal, but not on this. Typically overwhelming.
Yeah, I'd say way overwhelming.
Yep. All right, let's go to William in Macon, Georgia.
Hey, William, you're on.
Hey, Jay. First of all, real quick, I thank God for this opportunity that we have to support Israel at this magnitude. But here's my question.
Okay.
With all that President Obama has done, especially with these releasing to get more prisoners, I think I already got the conclusion for myself, but I want to hear from you guys. Do you think he's really trying to destroy the very fabric of what America stands for?
Well, I mean, he has a different worldview, Jordan, it's fair to say. He has a different worldview on how he views America and our role in the world. I mean, this is the leading from behind, and that's why he would try to close Gitmo, which he's not going to be able to do, by the way.
Yeah, and I think Hillary Clinton actually has some space here to make more of a contrast. Now, she's instead kind of fully embraced this Obama strategy, so I don't think we're going to see that right now. Maybe in the debates when she's pressed a bit, because she is certainly, and I think this is important to point out, Donald Trump mentioned Israel yesterday in his speech, but she is certainly doing something different from President Obama. Policy aside, politically, she is directly trying to take her record and saying, I'm great for Israel. And so she's actually, I think, at least trying to sound, whether the policy matches that on the Iran deal, but she sounds hawkish. She sounds like she cares about Israel a lot more than President Obama did.
That's going to do it for the broadcast today, everybody. Again, as we close this broadcast out, you could take a stand for the state of Israel. We're defending Israel in federal court. You could be part of that defense team. Go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255 and add your name of support for Israel. Critical that you do it. Sign this petition today. I want hundreds of thousands of signatures. aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255.
Israel is under constant deadly terrorist knife and rocket attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support Israel face vicious discrimination at U.S. universities, all in an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. Israel is our ally, the Jewish people our friends. It's our duty to defend them. That's why the ACLJ is launching a massive new multinational legal campaign in defense of Israel, in the U.S., at the UN, and with world leaders. But we need these global leaders to hear from you now. Add your name to our new petition, a petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or you can add your name online, aclj.org.